All right, so today is Friday, a little bit of a midweek update, and on the starboard side here, I've got 5 layers of the 1708 on. So I've got one more layer to put on here, and then I'll have to start fairing this out a little bit. And over here, done some more sanding, and I decided to go ahead and fill just a little bit more in here. And this is actually the epoxy fairing compound that I put on here now, because we've got this covered in glass cloth too, so we really don't need to use any structural epoxies on here, fillers on here. And I started sanding this area out here, which I had coated in an extra layer of epoxy, which I did on all this stuff. After I put the first layer of glass on, I put another layer of epoxy over everything. And I did that here, but I got a little carried away, and as you can see, I got runs everywhere in here. And this is not much fun sanding up underneath here. As I've said many times before, any of the work underneath here is just not much fun to do. So yeah, we're working on it, but so be it. We have to do what we have to do, I guess. But yeah, we're making progress here too. I got one more layer to put on here. It's been cool this past few days, so the nights have been down in the 40s, which is remarkably cool even for this time of the year. So I've been closing the building up at night, but even then it's getting a little cool, so this stuff isn't curing quite as fast as what it has been. Actually, this week now it's supposed to be getting up into the mid-80s again, so yeah, getting a little warmer, but so things will cure a little faster. So I had to wait another day, so probably tomorrow I'll put the last layer of 1708 on there. And in other work, I've been working up in the boat, and let me show you what I got going up there. Alright, so we're back up in the engine room, and I've been working on the ceiling in here, on the overhead, and I'm just about done, but it went about the way I expected it to. I've got 1-inch fiberglass sound insulation that was friction fit up there, and then I've been cutting these acoustic panels to go up in there. And then I put this 1/2-inch quarter round in here, and I was nailing it. I pre-drilled all these, and these are stainless steel painted nails. They're white painted, not that the white paint stayed on them after you pounded on them, but anyway, that's what I was using. And I also bought some screws because I suspected I was going to have problems hammering in particular, like back there. You see I got those couple nails that aren't pounded in yet. So I don't know if I'm going to have to try to crawl up on top of the fuel tanks and surf these fuel tanks and to get those nails back there driven in, or what exactly I'm going to do. But it's hard to nail them in. And as you can see, I scuffed up a lot of places with the tile. I'll have to touch that up with a little paint, I suppose. But I don't know, that was kind of tough going. And then some places you hit a tough spot in the wood, whether it was a knot or what, I don't know. But the nails wouldn't drive. And then if you try to pull them out, the plastic's all screwed up. And yeah, I was having all sorts of troubles there. So I decided, another thing that I bought when I was at the store was these stainless steel finish screws. I thought, well, maybe that'll be easier. Now, I've had some problems with these type of screws. They use a little T10 star bit. I've had problems that those star bits wear out right away. They don't, as long as you can keep them perfectly square and good pressure on them when you drive them in, those bits do an alright job. But after I got about 8 or 10 of these in, then once I got, maybe was reaching back in there, probably right here, you can see this one's not in all the way, and I didn't do those back there at all. Didn't get decent pressure on it, or got off an angle a little bit, and it stripped out the tip of that T10 bit, and then it was useless. It wouldn't drive anything anymore. So what I finally wound up doing was I went ahead and put nails in most of these here, But then I went and got my my little brad nailer, which is right here, and I started running brads in, you know, especially back there farther away from the, you know, from where I could reach. And that brad nailer works fine. Now it's not stainless steel nails, but they're certainly a lot easier to drive than anything else. You just poke them up there and pull the trigger and you're done. So I probably should have gone that way from the very beginning, and I thought about it, I considered it, but I thought, well, they'll probably get rusty. And you get little rust stains up here and whatnot, so stainless would be better. And so I was trying to use the stainless nails, and I did over most of it. But anyway, so it's just about done. I need to get back up in there and on both of the far outboard ends of these, and get those screws or nails or whatever driven. Maybe I could find somebody skinny and still able to, competent with working with tools that could do that for me. I don't know. Maybe I can make it up in there and do that. I don't know. And whether I actually need to do that or not either, I don't know. I mean, it's more just cosmetics than anything else. But this gives me a fair amount of insulation up here. That 1-inch fiberglass, and then this stuff's, you know, 5/8 of an inch or whatever it is, this acoustic tile. I've noticed already, like when I've got music playing outside or outside the boat in the shop here, if I close the door here, it's pretty quiet in here. So yeah, it should work all right. I think it'll be adequate insulation wise, and it didn't totally, you know, rob all of my headroom out here in here. I can still, at least in between these deck beams here, I can still stand up. And now that I've got the overhead in here, I can start putting some more of these lights up in here. Get the lights and then get the wiring finished for in here. So that will be good. Be another nice job to have done. I think I'm going to put both some AC lights, and I might put some 12-volt lights in here too, just in the event you ever had an inverter failure or something like that. You'd still be able to get some lights at least on in here. I don't know, probably isn't that necessary. I suppose I'll have a number of handheld lights that I could bring in here to work with if we absolutely had to. But yeah, so that's what I've been working on the last couple days. And you can see here's all my scraps from the insulation, and of course every tile had to be cut to fit in up there. So yeah, it wasn't a real easy job, but it wasn't horrible either. So yeah, good to have it done though. No, that's all right. Okay, are you ready over here, Randy?
Can be.
Was it lurching around much, or was it pretty stable?
It was good.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to get the bucket filled up again, which, as you can see, I overfilled the bucket. We got a bilge full of water. Okay, you guys ready? Yep. Hello, welcome to the boat shop. Today is Tuesday, which is kind of a late week update, but I wanted to talk about what I did today, or what we did today while it was still fresh in my mind. We ran the engine, and I had two tasks I wanted to do running the engine. I wanted to hook up the raw water cooling and run it long enough to get the engine up to temperature. So what I did was I rigged up a couple pieces of fiberglass tube to a couple of flexible pieces of wet exhaust hose inside, and then I just ran it out the window here. I used a piece of plastic drain pipe for the connection there, which is, where did I go with it? Well, yeah, it's got to be here somewhere. Oh, there it is. It fell off my sawhorses. Yeah, this plastic flexible. This stuff is really lightweight and nothing in particular special plastic or anything like that. And you know what? This stuff didn't even get warm. So, yeah, my concerns about using high temperature epoxy for the fiberglass in these exhaust tubes was probably not warranted. Okay, so we wanted to run the engine long enough to get it up to temperature, so I put a bucket inside and ran a garden hose in there and had water pumping into that 5-gallon bucket to the raw water intake, and then had the exhaust coming out here. The other thing I wanted to see was I wanted to see the rotation of the shaft versus which way the lever was engaged on the transmission, because there really wasn't any documentation on what was forward and what was reverse. Now, they say that transmission can run with a left hand or right hand prop. It doesn't matter which direction you run the prop on that thing. You could put a right hand prop on it and run it, you know, in forward, put a left hand prop on it and run it in reverse just fine, and you'd have exactly the same outcome. So that's good to know, but I needed to know which way to hook up someday the controls. So I know it's not a good idea to run the shaft dry like this, and it wasn't, because we got a lot of real high frequency vibration off these little ridges and I knew that was probably going to happen. I suspected it, because when we were installing this thing, if you turned the shaft, you could feel it kind of clunk, 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 as those little ridges would catch on the stainless steel shaft, and what that resulted in when we ran the engine was a kind of a buzzing, a high frequency vibration. And I'm sure that'll go away when there's water throughout the system. But that part wasn't in the card. So all we needed to do is really bump it into gear and look and see what happened, and that was really all we did. Not only that, I didn't want to destroy these Cutlass bearings right away. So yeah, we didn't run it in gear much, but we tried running it up there in long enough to get the engine up to temperature. But much to my amazement, I guess I would say, that raw water pump did not, and we're going through the muffler and everything in there, the water lift muffler, but rather than, you know, kind of bloop 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 and water out once in a while like you see most boats doing, this thing had an absolute continuous stream of water coming out, and it was moving a lot of water. Like that 5-gallon bucket was full, plus I had the hose running, and I couldn't even get 1 minute engine run time out of, you know, maybe 7.5 gallons of water per minute, or less than a minute. So that was moving a lot of water, and it surprised me. That's kind of a good indicator of, you know, why you should maybe put an emergency pickup, put a Y on that inlet hose, that raw water inlet hose, and use it as an emergency bilge pump. Boy, that would move a lot of water. And it was moving a lot of water. I don't know. I didn't really get any video of that, but down there you can see where the water was shooting. It's got a place in the grass where it flattened the grass out. Now, a couple other things happened, or one other thing of importance happened while I was up there. I forgot to turn the garden hose off after I shut the engine down, and I let several minutes of water flow into the bilge. Now, that in itself isn't incredibly noteworthy. But there was good news and bad news with that. You can see the wet spot down there, and it's still dripping a little bit. But where we've got seams here that aren't closed up yet, yeah, there's dripping. The water was dripping out there, which was expected. Yeah, and there was only just the one seam here that was dripping, so that was good. But what wasn't expected and what wasn't good is this right here. You can see water's been dripping out of the keel from in here and then down there. So what caused that? Well, the same reason we got these dark lines here. When I put the bolts through here to pull the keel or detach the floors to the keel, that's a bolt hole that goes all the way through. And when I did that, I would fill those up with the copper naphthenate, and that's what you're seeing there is copper naphthenate leaked out. I would plug the hole in the bottom of the keel, fill it with copper naphthenate, let it saturate, and then drain it out. But in this case, we've got an area that was not bonded. So whether we didn't have enough epoxy there, there was a warp in the board or something that didn't allow it, whatever the case is, we've got a gap in here. And so if water was coming from in here, draining down that bolt hole, around the bolt, and then coming out here, well, that means if we're in the ocean, same thing can happen in reverse. Water's going to come in here, get that bolt hole, go up and go into the boat. Now, that is a situation where I'm sure once the wood around that bolt saturated, it would swell, and it would probably be a self-sealing leak. But it surprised me a little bit. I didn't expect that. So we're going to have to make sure that when we finish this area off here, the side of the keel, we're going to have to make sure this is well sealed up. You know, I had planned on putting fiberglass on here too, but I wasn't sure how well I was going to finish this. But I think I might wind up now doing a little bit better job of you know, filling and sanding and finishing this to make sure this is watertight from the outside, as is everything else. So if it's sealed up from the outside, we'll be all right. Isn't going to be an issue. And even if it wasn't, like I said, I'm pretty sure that's a situation where, you know, that would have gotten wet, the wood would have got wet, saturated, and swelled, and it would have sealed up. What's interesting is that it leaked at all, though, because it had to get around the floor, where the floor meets the keel, where the floor sets on the keel, and those were real well bedded. They were not epoxy, but they were real well bedded with dolphinite. So, my guess is the wood probably shrunk a little bit. Excuse me, so the bolt, you know, that was tightening that down, relaxed a little bit, and we probably got that floor pulled up a little bit. And of course now, this is right in all the water tanks area and whatnot in here, so there's no way to get at that. You'd have to tear half the boat apart to get at that. You know, it might be just a simple matter as tightening up those nuts a little bit more. But that's going to be, well, not impossible, but difficult to do now. So, what did we learn? Well, yeah, we learned this about the keel. We need to get this keel sealed up real well. Everything worked. There was that high frequency vibration in there, but I'm sure that's simply because there was no lubrication on these bearings. Otherwise, everything worked fine there. And of course, I got my bilge all wet now, and so I used a wet and dry vac to get 99% of it out, and I got fans up in there now to help dry it out. I can see that's going to be a little bit of an issue in the boat. If we get water in the bilge, getting that last little bit of water out, it's not necessarily going to be easy. And I kind of knew that going into things, and I just kind of had it in my mind that it would be going to be a dry hull. We wouldn't have any leaks, but you know, yeah, you can always have leaks from inside the boat too. You know, a water hose comes loose or overfill or something, and you know, do like I did today. You know, forget to turn the garden hose off and pump a bunch of water into your bilge. So I've got fans going in there now, and like I said, I sucked almost all that water out. So, and I sucked out quite a bit of water with a vacuum. But I don't know. So we didn't get to run the engine long enough to bring it up to operating temperature. And I don't know how much, what volume of water would be required to do that. But if I really want to do that, I think what I should probably do is go ahead and take the impeller out, the raw water impeller out, and then I can at least bring the engine up to temperature if I want to do that. But I do like the idea of running the engine occasionally to keep it lubed, and yeah, so you don't get rusting starting, keep the cylinders oiled up and the valves. And so yeah, we should try to start it once in a while, or at least a little more frequently. But that's the situation we had today. The good, the bad, a little bit of the ugly, but we learned some things, so that part's all good. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit more about this situation with the keel and the water in the boat, the bilge pumps and the bilge, and how that's all designed. So what we've got here is, this is the keel, of course. Here, this area here is the keel. This green part here, that's the floor that goes across. That's a 4x10 in there, and so that floor then sits on top of the keel, and there's a 3/4 inch bolt that goes all the way through, and it's recessed for nuts on each end. And so there's a nut inside there, and there's a nut inside there. Now on the bottom, this was all sealed up with thickened epoxy, and there's fiberglass coating on this. That fiberglass coating wrapped up around like this, and so there's fiberglass already on the bottom, and the holes on the bottom are sealed up with thickened epoxy. On the top, there is nothing. That's just a hole going down through there. But the area where the keel and the floor timber meet, that was bedded, and then this was compressed down on there, and then once the floor was in, the frames were bolted to the, there's bolts going through here on either side, so that's bolted onto the floor, and so that makes all one big assembly. Now what we got going on here is we probably got water in the bilge that came down in here. Water that got in the bilge and got in between these two pieces of wood here, got down here, and then made its way out a crack in the keel. For some reason, the epoxy didn't grab there, didn't seal it up. So, like I said, if we get the outside sealed up, we'll be okay. Now, you may wonder, I talked about not having access to my bilge in a number of areas. Now, if you look at the boat from a different direction, if we look at it from the side view now, the keel is made in pieces, and some places those pieces meet at different angles. This whole thing here comes down, and I've got a pump in here up in the bow. There's a pump there, and then there's a, when you get back to the engine room here, the lowest point in here, I've got another pump in here. So these floor timbers, while they would seal these individual compartments and allow quite a bit of water, 9.5 inches of water in there or whatever, that's not going to be the case, because what I did when I built the boat, and this is something that George recommended, was to nip off the ends of all these frames, and I did that. So that allows water. So that allows water to flow along the top of the keel there. But you have to remember, there's planking that runs along here that's let into the keel. So there's planking on there. So, but we got this area here where water can flow from one frame to the next. As you got frames in here, that water can flow on either side next to the frames. And I positioned bilge pumps that are accessible every place that was low, so I can get at all of those spots where the water would collect. Now right now the boat is sitting a little bit bow down, so it's not quite as likely to have the water all flow to those points, which is unfortunate today. But when the boat's in the water, we're going to have those points all established with pumps, and it's accessible, so I'll be able to to dry the water out of there completely, because the bilge pumps bilge pumps basically sit up in here, and so they're higher than what this little cavity down here along the sides of the keel can handle. So the water is going to be down in those areas. If it gets high enough, of course, it comes up here and the bilge pump's going to take it out. But this area down in here, it can't. So that needs to be cleaned out somehow. And shop vac does that job just fine. Then as you vacuum the water out, it you know, from back here, from this point, then the water will flow back through these openings at the bottoms of the keel, or the bottoms of the frames. So if you're worried about, you know, being able to get water out of the boat, that's what we did, and we do have access to all the low points where that water would collect. So we can get the water out of there, yeah. Anyway, that's just the point that I wanted to make. So it's not the end of the world type of deal with that water down in there. You can get it out. Hello and welcome to the boat shop. Today is September 11th of 2024, and I'm going to just give you a quick update here, because you've seen in previous clips what we've been up to. But I wanted to come up here and show you the bow. I just have been putting more layers on here and sanding them down, and this is pretty much where I want it to be now. I think I'm 98% happy with it. I was 90% happy earlier, now I'm 98% happy with it. So we'll do a little bit of cleanup on it, and I'm going to put some epoxy on there, and we'll probably sand it and do a little bit of finish work after the epoxy, or it's an epoxy primer after that goes on. But it's, yeah, looking pretty good. And over here, we've got our 6 layers on here now. I used peel ply in this final layer to make it a little easier to work with. But we'll need to fill this in. You know, we didn't get a full ½ inch of there's probably 3/8 of an inch of thickness of fiberglass on here. So we'll fair that out like we did over here to make it nice and smooth and make a nice transition. And yeah, we should be good to go here. I think I'll take you up in the boat next, so give me a second and I'll get you up there. Okay, so back up inside, and in here you can see I got some more lights in here, and so it's pretty bright in here. And I just put the floorboards back here because I had these out. I had a fan in here drying this out from yesterday's bilge test. Yeah, anyway, so you can see down in there now it's dry now with the fan running in there. I think I'm gonna set the fan over here now, just to pump some air through the bilge. And one of the things, the way this is designed, you know, I'm leaving the bilge open all the way up to the sides of the boat, kind of act like little air funnels and that's true on both sides, and it's even true, you know, down here. I've got into these lower cabinets, I've got holes left so ventilation air can come up and through there. And the same thing will be true over here. So we can get air through the bilge essentially, and up and out of the boat. But yeah, so I'm just going to lay a fan here and blow air, and it'll blow air throughout the bilge and then up through these vents and out to get any last little bits of water that may be in there out. But yeah, I need to do a good cleaning in here again too, and need to get these floorboards screwed back down because, like I said, I had them all out. And I still do have to get some of these ends of these little pieces of quarter round screwed or nailed in, whatever. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I feel like crawling up there and doing that today, or if I can find somebody skinny to crawl up in there and do that for me. But anyway, so yeah, we're recovered from yesterday's little flooding in here, and the engine room's looking pretty good. So Anyway, that again is a few other things I've been up to, and we will get back to you again next week.